So the stories in Forza Horizon 6 honestly kind of threw me for a loop because to be real guys, I was not expecting these to be nearly as good as they actually were. Now, we all do know there will end up being the drifting ones, which you guys will see a piece of this in the background. We'll have ourselves the photography one, the auto shop type one where you have to go find a car, then it gets upgraded, you have to go do a thing with it, that type of thing, which I gotta admit, they were all really fun. Then we also have the day trip one as well. Now, I will say when I was going into these stories, I was kind of not expecting them to be all that interesting in a way because we all kind of know that some of these just could have been more events, right? Or it's kind of just thrown in there as other type of events with a couple pieces of dialogue that really didn't matter. Some of that kind of gave me that feeling with a lot of the playlists in Motorfest at least because a lot of them just did not have enough going on. They were just races with a cutscene or something with something and that was kind of it. But when jumping into these, I was genuinely surprised on how cool it was because not only was it focusing on different things about Japan, but it also gave you facts about cars and stuff that you were also using. So while doing the stories, I was genuinely learning things and it was really cool. For example, right now in the Honda Civic guys, which by the way, when I first jumped into this event, I kind of thought it was just another race cruising through Tokyo City, and maybe it wasn't going to give you a lot of information about things, but the day trip ones were so dang cool because it was even explaining that there was no Honda Civic in 1971. You had to wait a whole year to get this car, and to be real, the Honda Civic's a crazy icon. And then they did end up introducing the Honda Civic RS in 1974, which is a really cool looking car. Not even going to lie, I would totally drive one of these. But I also have a feeling it might not be in the US, at least from the looks of this car. Or, you could probably bring it over. But the other part of this, though, which is really cool, is it did end up showing the big crossing area, which a lot of people might recognize, or at least I thought about Tokyo Drift. Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, but it talked about this as being one of the busiest pedestrian crossings in the world with around 3,000 people crossing at it at peak hours. I just kind of sat there. I literally paused the game and I went, wait, 3,000 people in one spot crossing the road? Like, this whole area has got to look insane. But it also brought me back to Tokyo Drift when they were drifting around that, and there's just people literally everywhere. And that is obviously the Shibuya. I think that's how you say that. It even said the Shibuya Scramble. It would probably be crazy to visit there and see the amount of people probably walking in one spot. I thought that was really cool though, man, because I'm like, okay, well, I'm literally learning cool stuff about Japan. And the funny part is, after going through some of this, I would literally go in and actually go, like, research some things about this, guys. Not even kidding. Now, with that also being said, though, it wasn't just about areas of Japan that were really cool. They also talked about cars as well, which was awesome. But on top of that, it talked about some of the areas you were in when you were actually racing around, guys. For example, in the Lotus right now, it does talk about how Japan really evolves a lot with the seasons and how each one really is a sight to see. And to be honest, even playing in the different seasons in Forza Horizon 6 makes me go, dang, I want to go find photos online of this because it probably does look really beautiful, even from how the game did end up showing this, which they did a very good job. Funny part is she talked about Mount Fuji, how you can actually climb it, apparently, which is kind of wild to think about. But I would also not put it past people trying to do some crazy something like that, you know what I'm saying? Because if you could climb it, I mean, why not? Like the people trying to go up Everest in a way, just climbing something you probably shouldn't be climbing, but you can, you know what I mean? The other part of that, though, which was really cool, is also in the Lotus here, it talked about the car you were driving, which was really cool because it kind of goes into facts about the vehicle and how everything was carbon, the aluminum exhaust, and how this car basically did not weigh that much. And it was kind of an amazing engineering feat for its time, which is something I really found cool. Like, I was even trying to research some of these cars after to find more things about them, which was really dope because I never really thought about some of this stuff a lot. We all do know, guys, every single car and everything has a lot of insane engineering behind it, but also noticing and learning some of this stuff about it is so dang dope to me. I really enjoy that. Like, I was legit locked into these seasons, guys, not even kidding. Speaking of that, one of the other cars was the Cuda, okay? This car is obviously one of my favorite muscle cars ever. I love this thing and the Charger. The Plymouth Barracuda, man, okay, this car is absolutely beautiful. One thing I did not know, though, is the front of it is basically a smiling barracuda. I was like, wait. I looked at the front and I went, oh, that's actually kind of wild. It's just some things you really wouldn't have known unless you were probably looking some things up, or even if you were into some of those cars. I think it's really cool to learn history about a lot of these cars, even if you might not even be into those. I find that super interesting. Speaking of that, the other part they talked about in this other story was then talking about the Hirosaki Castle, which I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool. Then it talked about how the construction of this castle was done in 1611. I'm like, 1611? That is absolutely wild. And something I really do love, by the way, is old history about buildings like this, guys. I love reading about buildings from the 1800s, 1700s. It's honestly really interesting to me. But we also then have how it talked about how this area in the springtime with the cherry blossom trees is obviously beautiful in that time. So if you went there and visited this part of Japan in that time, you would literally learn about history of that. And it's so cool how the game is showing that and talking about it. And then right after, I then did end up doing a story where I pretty much learned about the Mitsubishi Murano, which was really cool because I did not know much about this truck. And I actually learned some things about this SUV while doing this story. And with that, one of the other stories I did was also explaining how like the crazy S-turn style roads that you would see, which are kind of prominent in this map or, in Japan, is they would simply not just go in there and kill every single tree. They would actually move them so they could put the roads in there and basically relocate the trees. I'm like, what in the world, man? I've seen a lot of construction stuff in Colorado, and I do remember them kind of going in there and basically just destroying part of the forest a little bit, because I literally remember them cutting the trees down to put some of the roads in to build some of the houses. But it seems like over there they're like, you know what, let's take these trees out, let's move them somewhere else, and let's keep the amazing forests alive. I mean, I think that's really cool, man. These little things really interest me. And speaking of that, the other part is, you guys remember how I was talking about the old Honda Civic, the RS one? After that, you then had to jump in the Honda Civic Type R, which talked about how you basically see the old Honda Civic evolve into this thing, which is kind of wild. You're thinking about 50 years later, you could see how far technology has come with different cars, and seeing how the car started then and then seeing what it looks like now was so dang cool in these stories as well, because it would kind of talk about the car a little bit, seeing how the new style of grip was, or seeing how the new motor in these cars are compared to back then, because we do know in the 70s and 80s we'd have like a V8 or something putting out like 190, 220 something horsepower, which, don't get me wrong, is not a terrible design, because a 250 horsepower V8 could probably go like 300,000 to 400,000 miles, whereas new cars have like a spaghetti style motor. And they kind of can barely get above like 100K before having issues, if you know what I'm saying. With all of that being said, though, I also did genuinely enjoy the auto shop stories as well, because they weren't just simply go there, drive the car a little bit. That's kind of it. You actually had to go grab the car, and then you had to drive it back, not damage it and all that. Then you would do some crazy upgrades to it. For example, guys, this Honda right now was probably one of the funnest cars I ever drove, and in fact, I definitely have to do a similar build to it. This thing did like 170 plus miles an hour. It handled very well, and it was really fast. It was kind of hilarious to drive with no TC on. I was having a great time with it. I'm like, okay, well, they do actually upgrade these vehicles and make them quicker, but it's also kind of cool, though, because basically every single car that you drove in the entire auto shop story, they all basically got upgrades. On the second part, you have to do a race or something with them, and do it really quick on top of that. Like, for example, in the Mitsubishi here, guys, this car is amazing, by the way. You probably have this because it's earlier on. But my goodness, though, driving this car stock or something, then seeing it get upgraded for the next part of it, it was really cool. And it kind of made you go, okay, well, this car being upgraded for the next part made this even more entertaining, because the car would be faster, it'd handle better. You can also kind of go, okay, well, if you're newer to the game, you can kind of see how a stock car handles or is compared to something that isn't stock, you know what I'm saying? But it's kind of fun seeing a few upgrades being thrown on a vehicle and then just simply just driving it and getting used to it in some of these stories. Or in ways that can at least show you that, yo, dude, you could probably make some of these cars you would not think be fast probably be way more ridiculous than you think. And I thought that was really dope. I really had a great time going through these. Learning a lot of stuff and going over the stories, guys, was honestly a really good experience. I would highly recommend it for basically everybody. I would say most players have probably gotten through a majority of them, but if you haven't, maybe you're waiting, or maybe you're like me, though, and you are taking this a little bit slower, you will have a really good time doing the photography ones like this one, where you had to take a photo of the GR above the car drifting in the middle of the crossing, guys, that we were talking about before. Again, it kind of connects a little bit. But you also then get to go drive cars in certain areas, learn about what made that car special, like the Ford Escort or the Mitsubishi. You can then learn about areas you're driving around the map that also you probably would never known about that part in Japan, like how they move the trees, or learning something about the Honda Civic or the Plymouth Cuda, for example. It's just really cool learning about those cars, but also learning about the locations around Japan is so dang cool to me, man. And I just had a great time going through these stories, and I think they did a really good job with this, guys. I hope in the next Forza game they take notes from this on the location that they pick, and they do something very similar to this, because honestly, it's probably one of the best ways to do it, as it doesn't just feel like another race, but you're also learning history, and it makes it way more interesting while you are doing it. And in fact, I'm going to say this, I have obviously played every Forza. This is not the first game to have stories. Obviously, 5 and 4 did. This game for me, guys, 100% did it the best.